Are we live?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Galley Gab Fest with Library Love Fest team, Gabs About Galleys, hence the name. All this whiteness going on around my head. Okay, hi, I'm Virginia.
I'm Lainey.
And I'm Grace.
The three of us are sitting in the same room at HarperCollins Publishers. Hello.
Magic.
Magic. With
Look at
three.
them.
It's like a
Hi.
mirror, when the mirror goes of infinite amount of
Yeah,
space.
yeah, it's like we're in Coney Island. I don't know. Anyway, we're happy to be here. We just came back from the Public Library Association's biannual conference. Biannual or biennial? It takes place every other year. Some librarian will tell me. I can never get those words right. Anyway, it was a great show. And we had some authors there and we buzzed books there and there were wonderful programs and a busy booth. So we had a great time. We just want to do a quick recap of what we had going on there, because whether you were there or not, it's good for you to know, and we're excited to tell you about some of the authors and some of the books that we talked about. So, you guys want to just chime in? And Lady, I think you should start with the big juggernaut.
Oh my goodness. So we had Rainbow Rowell, which was like, I haven't even told them this story, but it was a big luncheon author. So we had a huge room packed with lunch and Rainbow Rowell was going to get up and speak for about 20 minutes. And then we had a signing, but PLA had asked a few librarians outside if they wanted to sit at Rainbow's table. And so quietly everyone filtered in and sat around the table with us, and they were making very polite, as librarians do, like very thoughtful conversation. Rainbow Rowell gets up to go do something, and all of them collectively go, "Oh my gosh, it's the author." And they were freaking out. And then she came back and they were like, "It was so lovely to talk to you. I can't wait for your performance." So anyway, that was a funny story. I didn't even tell them yet, but
Really funny.
it was fantastic. And she had that room so captive. It was about her writing process, and she was very funny too. But this book, Slow Dance, it's an adult book. So she kind of had to talk a little bit about where she's come from and where she is and how she didn't really intend to write YA or adult. It just happened, and she wrote this next adult book. And I'm telling you, there were some really good quotes from that. Like, it's okay to not fold your clean laundry to get things done. She was really great. And then at the end, we had a big signing, and it went all the way back. Everybody got a galley, and some people brought Marvel comics that she's written. Some people brought Eleanor and Park, all old and beloved, and she signed those. And then what was cool is that we also, so consecutively while this was going on, Rainbow and I had a conversation virtually for the PLA virtual conference. So if you were able to see the virtual conference, or if you have access to that, you can go back and watch it, I think. So that was great, and it went at the same time. So everyone who is virtual got to hear her speak as well. But if you'd heard both, they both were a little different. So it was amazing. And she also came to the booth and signed a lot of galleys there too.
Yeah, that was such a line. Like I don't know, like I felt like a book fairy when I was giving out the books. I remember I handed a librarian a book and she went, "I love you." And I was like, wow, I just want librarians to say nice things to me all day.
Well, it was cool. And she, I don't know if you guys knew this, but she had some real, there was tricky weather going on. And I don't know if that contributed to it, but she didn't get until 3 a.m. So she was, what a trooper she was, and just what a pro. And couldn't have been kinder to everybody at the booth who came and talked to her. And she was lovely. She was just lovely. So that was
Yeah.
really exciting to have her there. And the interview that you had done with her, that was pre-recorded, so
Yeah.
which Lainey had done from here. And that was just fantastic. So that had happened, and then they put it together to show at the same time. So anybody who was a PLA member who was participating in the virtual conference, they got to watch that at the same time as Rainbow's actual performance. So I thought that was really a neat thing that PLA did. They're They're a great organization.
Yeah. A couple of comments. Well, one, we met Jennifer Jumba at the booth and she's here, said she would read anything you recommend, Virginia. So lovely to say hello to, met you in person, now we can say hi virtually.
I know, it's so sweet.
Uh,
Good to see you.
yeah.
virtually.
And then someone said, I love slow dance, and I'm insisting on all of my colleagues and peers buying it. Eleanor Park's my favorite YA book of all time. Sigh. So thank you, Donna. And there was one, oh, Sue Jeffrey must have met Rainbow at PLA because it's so sweet and a pleasure to meet them.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really neat. It's so hard too when you're doing this signing and, Grace was corralling everybody and trying, and then all the stuff that goes on, like all the other exhibitors are like, hey, could you not block my booth with your line? I'm like, hey, could you get me a pastrami on rye? Because that can't happen either. You just have hundreds of people that want to meet this person, and it's madness, but in the best way. Like there was literally a marching band going through the aisles of the exhibit hall, and just as a really cool energy and lots of people. Then at some point you have to say, I'm sorry, but we have to stop the line here. But oh my God, there's so much going on. But in the end, it's all about this great love for this writer. And not just her, but writers at all the other booths it's just so cool to see. And it was just a great, it's always cool to go to a conference when you see it all come together. But I don't know, I think especially now more than ever, it was really nice to see everybody coming together for the greater good. It was all up, it was just all up. It was cool. And we had Ace Atkins who spoke at a mystery panel. We've had him on several times on our Writers to Watch, our Galley Gab Fest, and he's fantastic. So and you both sort of handed Ace off at one point because there was a lot going on at the same time.
It was like a relay race where you like pass the baton. Is that when you pass the baton?
Yeah, you passed the ace.
Somebody like correct me.
That's the
So
Pass
like
the ace.
it was a lot of maneuver. Like I brought Rainbow to the lunch. Lady met me there after being with Ace, and then I went to go to Ace's signing, and that room for Ace's signing for the mystery panel was packed. Like it was so wonderful to see, and he signed books for literally like everybody in that room, him and five other authors who were all fantastic, and like they were all making great conversation with each other and with everybody in line, and it was just really great to see. He is so kind and so wonderful to be around and speak to, and he was great. He was like asking me, he's like, is there anything I can do for you? And I was like, get out of here, I'm great. I'm just happy that you're here. And it was super fun.
Yeah, we shuffled the deck. Okay, sorry. We did have to shuffle a little bit around to make sure we got everywhere. We got to see a little bit of everything, so that was really nice. But so for Alma, I did some of the introductions, Ace included for the mystery panel, and I got to luckily see some of the questions. Everyone was super excited to talk to him. They had a lot of questions. One librarian's like, "Can you come to my library?" I'm like, that's the kind of question I love. So it was really great. And that was a cool group. There was like a vibe going on. Everybody was friends. Yeah. Mystery panel was great.
And there were like 500 people at that thing, right?
Yeah. It was
Crazy.
huge.
Crazy.
Good.
Crucial.
So if you went to ALA, and then we need to mention Dan Coyce, who was our third author. And
Yeah.
oh my God, we were so excited to meet him. He wrote Vintage Contemporaries. Now he has a new book out called Hampton Heights. What a sweet man, and very, very sort of understated, kind of funny, not kind of funny, very funny,
He's
and
hilarious.
dry,
Yeah.
a dry delivery, and very gracious with his fellow authors. He spoke at 2 panels, a library reads event, and then
Evening of dialogue.
a library reads and then library journal. Yeah, so 2 separate events and 2 separate messages, and just cool, a sweet man, and just Vintage Contemporaries is beloved. If you haven't read a copy of that, please do. And then this next one is very different. It's set in the 80s, right? And it's about these boys who have a paper route, and he talks about his own paper route, what like his childhood sort of informed this, but he infuses some sort of like, scary supernatural stuff. He's funny.
He's so
He's
funny.
cool. And so Dan Coyce,
Yeah.
great
Um,
guy.
I'll talk a bit more about his book in a bit and read a really great quote for it. I just had so much fun reading that book, and Lainey and I both read it, and like, I told Dan, I was like, it was one of those moments where like I didn't know how far you had gotten in the book and you didn't know how far I had gotten. So we were kind of like trying, at least I was trying not to like potentially spoil it. And I told him like just the pure shock as I was reading it was like how I was like, yeah, this is a great book. And he was like, I know exactly what you mean.
So why don't we, so that's it in a nutshell. I think you get the idea of what PLA was. It was, over 7,000 people there, all in with, vendors and librarians and whatnot. So a great show. We just kind of wanted to give you a little snapshot of what that looked like. And of course, we all did presentations of titles, and which is what we're going to do now. So we're going to talk about a couple of books that are coming out in June. So if you're the voting kind, we have a couple of books that are coming out in June, which means that you have until May 1st to submit a vote for those June publications. So just a couple of, we've been talking about these books. We're not going to spend a ton of time on them, but we want to make sure you know about them. If you have read them, please, if you love them, please vote for Library Reads. And if you haven't, there's time. These are not, these are accessible, digestible, and really, really, really great reads. That's why we're taking your time and ours to tell you about them. So do you want to start, Lainey, with Wanda?
Yeah.
Do we want to we can do the writer's swatch at the end.
What are you talking about?
Writers to watch for next time. I got it up, but let's move into the books.
I don't know. We can do anything we want to.
It's
We
our
make the
show.
rules here.
All right, talk about Writers to Watch really fast, and then we'll go into the books.
Yeah. Wednesday, April 17th, we have four at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We have four fantastic authors. Lula Jean's Little Library of Banned Books, which Virginia is going to talk more about
Maybe.
shortly. The Horse by Willie Blotton, Ian K. Smith's Eagle Rock, and All This and More by Punk Shepherd. And we're really excited. It's going to be on Facebook and Crowdcast, and I'll toss that event link in the Facebook chat for you guys. And then let's move on to Wanda.
Okay. Wanda Morris, this is her third book. We've had the great pleasure of doing her two before this. Her debut just came out like a rocket. I feel like there was so many email chains of just like awards and quotes and everyone. She's beloved, and she is, so it's a mystery, always a mystery. There's always like a really like kick butt woman in the background who the characters really shine through, and this one's no different. It's so her second one was historical mystery, and this goes back to contemporary. So like she's always doing something kind of fun and different, and this one has a little bit of a speculative side to it. And her response to this quote we just got in was just like, because it's so good. I'm gonna pull it up because regretfully I didn't have it right at my fingertips. 1 second. But this book is about a woman who is a lawyer, but she's lost her job and she's moved back from the big city in Atlanta and comes to a smaller town where she, her family is all there. And she's just lost her mother, so she's dealing with a lot of grief and loss. And her dad's remarried kind of quickly, so she's just got a lot of changes in her life, and she just feels kind of like down. She doesn't know how to get out of this. And as she's going to kind of reconnect with her mother, she goes to the coast to see some land, and there's a man there who's living on a trailer on the land, and they have kind of a tiff because he doesn't know why she's there, and he keeps saying kind of crazy things about like, get off my land, I don't want to sell to you. And she's like, I am not trying to buy your land, I'm just walking. And so that kind of like stays with her, and she goes home thinking how weird it is. And then when she goes back to kind of say like, are you okay, what's happening, he's gone mysteriously. So that sends her down the rabbit hole. She looks into all of these things that are mysteriously happening around her. All of her friends and family, they seem to be losing land at an accelerating rate. And the people she's working for, she's just kind of like continuously going on her lunch break to look into these things, and that's not really cool. So she keeps like, she's holding on by a thread, trying to figure all this out because she thinks maybe she can help them as a lawyer figure out why their land is going. And it ends up that it's something called heir rights. It's a really contemporary issue, so that's in there as well. But primarily Black and poor rural areas, it would go back even to the Civil War when they got land. They could, it's kind of complicated, but essentially they were divvied up by family, and if one person loses some land, then everyone does. And so as they're all falling victim to this because they don't really understand that legal stuff, they are losing this land. So she's going to try to help find them. But this just came through. It's a starred book list review, and it is a dang good review. It says Morris displays an astonishing mastery of multiple literary forms. At the story's core, it's a solid mystery, intricately, excuse me, embroidered. Where did I go? Hold on. Embroidered with characters who seem to jump off the page. She also excels at weaving in elements of the paranormal and inexplicable. Like an oddly benevolent Shirley Jackson, the tale is ominous at first, full-blown at the finish, not to be missed. That is a good quote. Shirley Jackson. I talked to Wanda actually, and she was like, Shirley Jackson, are you kidding me? Like this, what is this quote? It's so exciting. So I hope that all of that and my explanation really makes you pick it up if you haven't already, because this would be she's already gotten it twice, Library Reads. This would be her Hall of Fame selection, and I can't think of someone who deserves it more because this book is great. Also, Grief and Loss. I know it's a mystery and thrilling. Some of the best writing on grief I've ever read. And she does that in a really beautiful and smart way. Okay, I'm going to stop talking because I could keep talking about it, but I'm really excited.
And we love her. Her first two books made the Library Reads list. I mean, that's amazing. This is only her third book, and she's just so smart and such a great storyteller. Anyway, okay, another book that's coming out in June is Sandwich by Catherine Newman. And you've heard me talk about this book for forever, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. But just to remind you that if you haven't read it, please do. It is not a long book, but it is a full book. And it is the story of this family that has rented the same little beach house for the last 20 years. And when I talk about a beach house, I'm not talking about something out in the Hamptons or, it's not that. It's the same old beach house that they love, even though it's a little, worn and the plumbing's kind of crappy, and it doesn't matter because they love the house and they love the memories that they have in their hearts. This couple's been going with their children since they were little. And so they have all these great memories, but over the course of 20 years, the kids grow up, the parents get older, life changes. The mom's now in menopause. The son's got a girlfriend. She's along for the ride. The mom's parents are older. They have some aging issues. So there's a lot going on with the family, but they're all together at this house and dealing with each other as adults. And there's growing pains. There's growing pains with the kids. There's growing pains with the husband and wife. But there's also great humor in this book. It's not this heavy thing, but there are moments when there are issues that they grapple with. And that's specifically Rocky, who's the mom, grapples with. And she's a very funny storyteller. There's a great quote from Ann Patchett, who wrote, "Sandwich is joy in book form. I laughed continuously except for the parts that made me cry." Catherine Newman does a miraculous job reminding us of all the wonder there is to be found in life. And that is what this book is. The jacket is delish. The story is delish. It's just so great. I love this author. She wrote We All Want Impossible Things, which was a think beaches, as these two friends and lifelong friends, and one of them has become ill, but also humor. If you can believe that, and because you can only cry so much. But this is a different kind of a book. And it also just got a starred review from Booklist. It's just out, so I can't really read too much of it because it's not been released yet, but Um, I'll tell you the last line that says, "This is a quick yet moving read that will stay with readers long after the last page." And that is so true, because I read this, I can't even remember when I read this, but I loved it then, and I love it now. I love this author. She's wonderful. So Sandwich goes on sale June 18th. Deadline for voting for library reads May 1. And then Coast Road by Alan Murren is another fave of mine. I adore his writing. This is takes place in Donegal in the 90s, and divorce was still not legal in the 1990s. So I didn't know that. But you know, he captures this time and this place and these characters, these women, focuses on, you know, sort of this microcosm of people that live in this town. They all know each other's business. These two women at the center of the story are in marriages that are not working. It's not to say, I think, that even if marriage were legal, I mean, even if divorce were legal, that they would divorce. I don't know, but this is how much I actually think about these women who are ink and paper, and I can't stop thinking about, wonder if they would have stayed together. I mean, Alan Martin and I have had this conversation. And many topics were covered in our conversation that you can find on librarylovefest.com. Lainey just edited for me, which it needed very little editing. It's about 25 minutes long. And I really didn't want it to go that long, but honestly, there's no good place to stop talking to him, because he is such a wonderful conversationalist, storyteller, writer. He reminds me of Wally Lamb. When I read She's Come Undone, I thought, there's no way a man wrote this. How does this man get this young girl's get inside this young kid's head? And that's what I thought of when I was reading The Coast Road, because I thought, how did this man get inside these women's head, the nuances of everything, you know, of these women? And these two women are not best buds, but they have to help each other out because they are both in these marriages that are not good. One woman has cheated on her husband. She's had an affair with a man. It's not worked out. She's back to town, but her husband, to whom she is still married because she can't get divorced, is not letting her see their children. And so she I don't want to say uses, but sort of does use this woman to help her have these clandestine meetings with her children. It's heartbreaking, and yet it is funny too, because they all give each other the business. You got to read this book. He's just wonderful, and I hope you watch the interview too. It's not too long. He's absolutely lovely. He's so respectful of some of the hardships and some of the things that these characters, these women have been through, which I won't tell you, are not anything that he could have experienced himself. And so he talks to me about how he felt like he needed to be extremely respectful of that experience that he could never have experienced himself. That's how much he puts into the care and writing of these and creation of these authors. So I mean, of these characters. So I really hope you check out The Coast Road. Again, it's going on sale in June. So library reads votes are due May 1.
Yeah, that interview was really great. You did a great job, and you can tell he feels so comfortable. Just like a chat. Just like chatting, and I don't know, it's really lovely. I put the link in there.
Thank you.
So everybody can watch it, and it's pretty short, and we'll put it up as a podcast soon too, but we just wanted to get the video up first. But so Jennifer Winberry said it's hard to remember that The Coast Road is set in relatively modern times. And Donna said, love that, thinking deeply about women who are ink and paper. That's why Virginia is Virginia.
Aw, thank you.
And somebody, to back up to Sandwich, someone said they read it on Galley, but they've already pre-ordered it so they can own it themselves.
Oh, right.
So yeah, there's lots of love.
Okay. All right. And I think my last one for June, and then we'll move on to some fall stuff, is Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books, which is by Kirsten Miller, who wrote The Change, which was everywhere. And this is a satire about this small southern town and this battle over banned books. in this library and this town that is completely changed. Their eyes are opened by this, sort of like this campaign. So there's these two women again, at the center of this book. One is Beverly Underwood and her arch enemy is Lula Dean, and Lula Dean is embarking on this big mission to rid the libraries, the public libraries, of inappropriate books, which of course none of them she's actually read. And so she wants to replace these pornographic books that she's challenged at the library and replace them with, you know, sort of these more sterile books. And Beverly's daughter decides to, she puts them outside, you know, a little public, little library, little lending library outside the house. And the arch enemy's daughter goes there and she replaces them all in the dark of night with the books that she feels that everybody should be reading. So this is it. This is, you know, the Girl's Guide to the Revolution is wrapped in the cover of the Southern Belle's Guide to Etiquette. You get the idea. A jacket that belonged to our Confederate heroes ends up on Beloved, Toni Morrison. So you get the idea. This is what happens. It turns every town upside down, makes people rethink things. And the editor and the author are good friends and came up with the storyline together. And there you have it. So this is another book that's coming out in June. May 1 is the deadline to vote. So this is a hot button issue, always has been, sadly, probably always will be, but this is an interesting take on the subject.
Well, actually, Jennifer says she has the best big cover of this book. Driving to PLA has its benefits. She got our big blow up in the booth of Lula Dean. And so I was just, so that leads me to say, I was going to say so much reaction, like even visual reaction to that book in the booth. I mean, they heard your buzz at PLA and came and look for it, but even people stopping by were like, what's that about? Because I mean, you're all going through this, people who need this book in their lives to understand, either, you know, understand more about it or to be like, yes, this is what I've been saying. So I don't know. It was cool to see that reaction live.
Yeah, very neat.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to, we have a half an hour left. We have some books coming out later, so we'll talk about those. Who wants to go?
Yeah, I am up next. Okay. How Women Made Music, switching gears. This book, first of all, has the prettiest cover. It's stunning. This is a book coming out from NPR. It's kind of this extension of Turning the Tables, which, if you're not familiar, is a series examining women's role in music. To no one's surprise, much music history is focused on men, while women have been instrumental, please laugh at that pun, in shaping music as we know it. Ann Powers, who's a music critic and co-founder of Turning the Tables, writes this beautiful introduction. She's also the author of one of our forthcoming biographies on Joni Mitchell, Traveling. And the anthology itself is edited by Alison Fensterstock, who is also a founder of Turning the Tables. So this book uses these archival interviews, essays, photographs, and illustrations to talk about women in music. It is visually stunning, impressive, and like this expansive history. I think like music fans obviously are going to flock to this, but it's also for fans who like very specific artists. It highlights musicians like Tracy Chapman, Patti Smith, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Carole King, Yoko Ono, and I could keep going, but we'd be here until like my 50th birthday. And I think this book is a great collector's item, but it's going to fit so well in the library as well. And audiobook listeners are going to have this like really special experience because they get to hear the archival interviews, obviously in the musicians' voices. So I think this is definitely a must buy.
Nice. It gives me very much When Women Invented Television.
Yeah,
Like there was such great conversations around that. It's wild, like what you can learn, and women really take the jobs people don't always want until it gets big, and then they're edged out. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I want to say again, that cover is so pretty, and like the book has gorgeous illustrations throughout.
Yeah. Cool. Ooh, talk about a really cool cover. This is Sister Snake by Amanda Lee Coe. This book, I immediately was drawn to it from the cover. I think it's really, really cool. It's kind of a slim read, so you can do it pretty quickly, but it packs a punch. It's a book from Amanda Lee Coe. You may know her from Delayed Rays of a Star. That was her debut novel. And she's gone on to like win many awards after and before. But this next book is kind of dark and seductive is really what I think of. It kind of feels like this snake is kind of like slithering through this whole story and making it weave and go really beautifully, but you feel like the recoil is coming. It's about two women who are from the Tang Dynasty in China. So they are snakes. They are a found family. They are always together, and they decide to turn into two women, two humans, and it's based on the legend of the white snake, which is a Chinese folk tale. So they turn into women and they live all of these like millennia as these women who can turn into snakes. And as their life goes on, they diverge. One is kind of more traditional. She has this political husband. She lives in Singapore. Everything kind of has a rule and she has a place and she likes it. And then she kind of has this erratic sister who does whatever she wants and has learned over the years that like she's a little nihilistic. Like, why am I going off all the rules when I can just make my own fun because I'm here forever? So they really don't always get along and they've not talked to each other in a while unless one of them's asking for money. And then all of a sudden the kind of wild sister gets into a predicament. Somebody is hurt, and a snake is on the ground. So I won't tell you, but something happens and the other sister is called in Singapore and is like, I'm there immediately. She rushes to her side. And as she brings her sister back to Singapore, really heads butt because this is a very like rule-based society and the other sister, it's not going to take too well to that. So you get to see them struggle against this conformity, and it's really, really beautiful, but like sexy and seductive too. And like I said, it's kind of a short read, so you should do it in a couple of sittings. And propulsive. There's also a lot about this New York and Singapore lifestyle. So it's kind of a love story too for those cities. They're kind of characters. There's also an underground queer community and this bustling food scene and nightlife. It's really vivid, and kind of a fun spin on an old folktale. So I really hope you pick it up. It's kind of like my sister the serial killer, like those kind of vibes. Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Okay, Hampton Heights, which we mentioned briefly earlier. Again, this is just such a good cover. It is so perfect for this book because there's so much going on, but it like blends together beautifully. And I want you to like make note of the sign that says a novel. And if it reminds you of a certain fast food place, it should. So this book by Dan Coyce comes out in September. And like we said, he's so funny. It was amazing. And I think like that humor and how personable he comes, like how personable he is really comes out in this. And this is a story of six paper boys in 1987. They go to a neighborhood in Milwaukee that none of them have been to, and it's this freezing cold night, and they have to sell these newspaper subscriptions. They're all like, 13-ish. So Dan was like, I can't believe our parents used to let us do that. Like, just go to strangers' houses and knock on their door, which I found very funny. And they are there with their like loser manager, Kevin, who promises them dinner at Burger King. Those are not my words in particular. Those are Dan's. Apparently he had a loser manager, Kevin. And again, like, I just love how much like of his like story he put into this while at the same time, none of it at all. So he promises them Burger King, and like I really get it because like the key to my heart is like also food. So they're gonna get paid, they're gonna get Burger King, it's gonna be great. But things get real weird real fast. The boys go out in pairs and they come face to face with like these monsters of all sorts. So we have these kids in pairs who are kind of, opposite of each other or very similar. We have one is a black boy who's stuck with this white kid who really idolizes black culture, another boy who's wrestling with his sexuality, and he's paired up with his like secret crush, and then the two who are like kind of outsiders, who like one's a second generation immigrant and the other is, you know, a poor kid in a rich school, and you get to watch them like develop these relationships with each other during this like insane night they're having. And basically what I loved about this is the characters are really like it for me. Like I had my favorites. I'm not gonna say who is my favorite. I would love to talk to Lainey afterwards about her
I'll say
favorite.
my favorite. It's Al.
There we go. Perfect. I was a big fan of Mark. I really enjoyed Mark. But I just think that this is such an outrageous and funny book, and I wanted to share something Dan said. He mentioned that like after becoming a parent, he was like, it was really like, I can't read books where something bad happens to the kids, but he goes, adults are fair game. And I just really loved that little tidbit. And I wanted to read this quote from Kelly Link, author of The Book of Love. She said, marvelous, tender, and unpredictable, Hampton Heights captures uncanniness and discomfort of adolescence. There's a pinch of Ray Bradbury, a soupçon of Stephen King, and a dash of fairy tale logic, but Dan Coyce has made something entirely his own out of this familiar and always pleasurable territory. So that is Hampton Heights, and again, out in September. I just really love this book.
It's super fun. And it's also a short read. I feel like I could not put this down. I might have read it, well, maybe 2 sittings, but it was really good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to keep reading because it's just so weird. Like,
Yeah. I feel like these days, like, I don't know, my attention span is not always there. And so I saw that it was so short and I was like, oh, like I was so excited to see it, but I was like, oh, I didn't know it was so short. It's sparse, but it's all there for a reason. There's no fat. Like it's
Yeah.
such like smart writing.
yeah.
And you will eat it up.
And it takes place all in one night too, which is why I think it can have that like contained storyline. So I again really love that one. And we have
Maybe want Burger King, not gonna lie.
Okay,
the next one we have is We Came to Welcome You. This one is by Vincent Toronto, who is this YA author. They won the Pura Belpré Award. Sorry if I mispronounced that, for their debut novel, Burn Down, Rise Up, and it was a finalist for a couple of other awards. So we're really excited to have this adult novel by them. And we've been kind of talking about this as, you know, the other Black Girl Meets Midsummer, but I also think it has like this, like, it's in the vein of like Jordan Peele. So if you're a fan of Get Out, which is one of my favorite movies ever, you're gonna want to pick this up. So the story follows Sol Reyes and her wife Alice Song, and they move into this like gorgeous gated community. They got the house for, you know, pretty cheap, but life isn't perfect right now. Sol's on probation with her job at this university lab, and you know, she's been visiting her homophobic father, which is obviously very hard for her, and she's, you know, drinking a bit too much. But Alice is remaining really hopeful that things are gonna be okay. You know, they're in this new neighborhood, and the motto of this neighborhood is invest in a neighborly spirit. And again, this is a horror novel, so that's a little unsettling. So the new neighborhood has these, you know, interesting characters. Sol thinks they're being too friendly. They've been inviting her to like the homeowners association meetings. There's this odd contract that they want her to sign. And of course, they're like throwing microaggressions at her the entire time. So with the neighborhood being weird, things also start to get weird in her home. There's suddenly doors disappearing and vanishing stairwells, and roots are sprouting out of the house, which I don't own a house, but I'm assuming that's not normal thing for a thing to happen to you. And Alice is just like not fazed by this. Like her wife literally is like, well, it's fine, you know, we're gonna focus on you and how you're getting paranoid and manic and, you know, you're drinking. But Sol's like really nervous about this, and I think rightfully so. And she finds a journal from a past resident that went missing a few years ago, and maybe that is why the house was so cheap. This book has this dark sense of humor coupled with this biting social commentary about being a minority in your own neighborhood and the pressure to assimilate. It touches on colorism and other issues, and I think, you know, it's all wrapped up in this horror novel, and I really enjoyed this read, and I want to bring that cover back up on the screen because I think it is so good with the pie and the, yeah. Fantastic.
Kim said, yeah, HOA meetings are always horrific. I thought was funny. Agreed.
What's next?
Okay, so this one, we're gonna bring it very serious. I am going in telling you this is a very important nonfiction read that is so striking. It has not left my mind reading it, and it's gotten so much buzz in the office. I feel like everywhere I go, everyone's talking about how wonderful this read is. It's there, it delivers. And this is By the Fire We Carry by Rebecca Nagel. Rebecca Nagel is an award-winning reporter, writer. She's also a citizen of Cherokee Nation. And she has a podcast. It's called This Land. It's brought to you by Pod Save America. So if you're a fan of those folks, you know them. And this is the story. It's very sweeping. It's also very biting. It is intense. And at the beginning, she in her thing says, this is a reading material in the back. Take care of yourself while you're reading. It is a lot of information. So I think you should know that going in. But it is very sweeping. It's about the history of the United States through indigenous lands. It's about a true crime case that took place in the 90s. And it's about all the history in between and even to present day because there's a Supreme Court case. So in the 90s, on the Muskogee land in Oklahoma, a person was murdered. Someone goes to jail for it, and she lays out that whole scene. They are put on death row. As they're appealing their case, it comes to the notice of their lawyer, who was really doing a lot of work to look into land rights. Interesting enough, two books of mine have to do with land rights. And they see that because of this 1830s history where they were rounded up and taken all the way to Oklahoma, promised land, and of course we know the government never gives what they say they're going to give, especially back then. And the Muskogee citizens didn't really get that, but some of them did retain some land rights, but they were also divided that sometimes they didn't own the land, or if they did, they also had to have practicing rituals that were going on. And there were all these rules wrapped up in it, but this lawyer decided that he can't be at the mercy of the death penalty because that is not the government's land. That is the Muskogee land. Then a huge trial comes, they go to the Supreme Court, and it affects the way land is looked at for the future. So Rebecca tells a sweeping history from all the way in the 1830s until the Supreme Court case. And it's really, really beautiful. It's great narrative nonfiction. It's hard. It's hard to read, but it's necessary to read. And she definitely takes a lot of care with it. And you can listen to the podcast. She covers that as well. So it's nice to have a little extra there, but this book is really going to be all in all of that information. And yeah, I'm very excited, and I want people to have this on the radars because the read is there. Yeah. And it comes out, I can tell you, it comes out in September.
Beautiful.
Someone said, Jennifer Wimmers, I'm getting goosebumps.
Well, also, that's a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Doesn't
It's
feel like a
important.
presentation. It just feels like,
I'm really enjoying reading it.
Yeah.
And I think,
it's important.
but I also, you should know going in.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. All right, well, switching themes a lot. Is we doing Borrowed Life?
Yes.
Borrowed Life of Frederick Fife. This is a debut by Anna Johnston. And this is it is a lighthearted book, but with some real themes of that need to be that are addressed, I think, very sensitively. This is a story about mistaken identity. It's a story about an elderly man, Frederick Fife, who is 82, lonely, broke. He's paid for his wife's medical bills. She passed, and he's on the brink of homelessness. And in a case of bizarre mistaken identity, takes the place of somebody else, a man who looks very much like him. So so the setup is that he goes for a walk and he finds a man. He's out in this park and he finds this man sitting in a wheelchair. He approaches him from the back. He goes up to see if he needs anything and he realizes that the man has passed away. And so he's looking around to see who is he with and what happened. And he's in his going through his jacket or something to see if there's any sort of, identification. The wheelchair becomes dislodged and it goes down this embankment and down a river. I know this sounds crazy, because it is crazy, but you have to go with it, because it is this bizarre case of mistaken identity. And what happened was that this gentleman was with this nursing home and they had taken, folks out for this trip to the park. And so they are ready now to collect everybody and bring them back in the van and bring them back to the nursing home. And they assume that Frederick is the man who was in the wheelchair. And so he's like, no, you don't understand him. He looks a lot like him. And because the man in the wheelchair had dementia, and he kept saying, I'm not Bernard, I'm Frederick Fife. They said, oh, just come with us. So the next thing you know, he's in this van going back to this nursing home. And while he tries to explain to them who he is, they just sort of, I don't know, they just yes him to death. And the next thing you know, he's sort of taken on this man's identity, and he suddenly has 3 square meals a day, and he's got a place to sleep, and it just starts to sort of be okay. But of course, it's not okay, because this man had a life of his own, and so this is really how the book starts. So you dive right in, river, but you dive right in, and it's really does sweep you away. And then he learns more about this man's life, and there's a twist. There's a fun twist in this story, where Frederick Fife is afraid he's going to be pinned for murder, because of course they ultimately do find the man's body. And so it's about this, sort of like, so how does this really happen? But there's a bigger message here. There's a bigger message about homelessness and bereavement and dementia and the loss of belonging, and then also sort of starting over again and reconnecting with people. And there's humor in here, there's a wink in here. This has got great book club appeal, I think. And I think what's really kind of neat about this is that the author sort of bases this on the relationship that she had with her grandparents that really provided the basis and the inspiration for the book. And she worked as activities coordinator for her in her grandfather's nursing home. So she became very passionate about working with the residents there and finding meaning and connection in their lives. So she really speaks beautifully about aging and elder care and intergenerational friendships. So this is a really sweet book with a great message. And that is The Borrowed Life of Frederick Fife, that comes out in September. So you have time. And what do we have next? Is there anybody?
Yeah, Book and Dagger.
Book and Dagger.
Yeah.
Ooh.
There is so much excitement for this book. I cannot even tell you how many people came to the PLA booth, because we had a big blow up of this in our booth, and people were so excited. I get it. And the read is also as exciting. So this is a refreshing angle on World War II, which we know is like a very well-covered topic. So Elise Graham, who is a historian and professor at Stony Brook, wrote this book about the librarians and the academics who works as spies for the Office of Strategic Services during World War II, because the US needed, more intelligence in the war. So she uses these personal histories, declassified OSS files, and archival materials and diaries to research the importance of spies in this effort to win World War II. And she touches on so much in this book, and it's not overwhelming with the way she approaches it. But one of the spies I found most interesting is a woman named Adele. She was an archivist who was sent to Stockholm to acquire documents for the OSS. And, spies were sent to libraries to read texts, because libraries are great holders of resources. But not all the information was there, of course, so Adele stepped in, and I'm not saying that she stole the documents, but she took great risks to deliver them to the US. And also, like, while you have these really exciting stories, the book makes this case for the importance of libraries and the value of maintaining records and providing access, to this broad collection of books and texts, which I think is obviously incredibly timely and important to talk about right now, with, the challenges with censorship. So at the same time, while we think like intelligence units, we're thinking about people in tech and STEM jobs, but the book really pushes this importance of humanities and all types of work. So I love this book, and I have a background in history, and I will say I've read a lot of very boring history books, and this is the exact opposite. It reads like this spy thriller, so I think like people who may not normally pick up nonfiction but may have an interest in something like this will reach for this one. It is so unique, and it is just so fantastic, and I just can't wait for everyone to read Book and Dagger.
Love it. Okay, I'm very sorry that my end ones are very intense. So just take care. As Rebecca Nagel said, take care of yourself. So this is White Robes and Broken Badges. This is another nonfiction. I must be on a nonfiction kick these days because I can't get enough of them. So this is also very important. It's very different than the other one. Joe Moore, it comes out August 13th, I think. And so FBI informant and former Army sniper Joe Moore gets a call. He's already infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan once before, and his contributions prevented an assassination attempt targeting then presidential candidate Barack Obama. Moore nearly lost his life in the process the first time he went undercover, but now the FBI needed his help once again. Can you imagine spending time undercover with this group and then being and like just getting out with your life and like recovering and then being like, can you go back? I can't. But that is how strong of a person Joe Moore is. It's a really harrowing true story of how he went undercover. He became a Grand Nighthawk, overseeing security, defense, and internal communications for the domestic terrorist group across Florida and Georgia. He showed all of these deep roots that have started in this group and told the FBI things they would never know without him because they don't believe really in virtual communication. So things that like the FBI they were like, I don't know that. And he would just bring it to them and give them all this information. They uncovered several people undercover working for the Ku Klux Klan. And he also saved several lives. He talks about that in the book. He never worked for the FBI. He was just an informant. So that means, we're on your side and we can do our best, but you're kind of in there. So if something happens, sorry, you don't work for us. That's wild. And so he goes in, he shows all of this extremist militias that they have. They've even brought in local law enforcement. They've brought in other military groups, and all of that, he says, ultimately is leading to things like January 6th. All of these things that they think rise up, even if they're not technically part of the KKK, like they think they can pull on them. It's fascinating and scary, but it's important to know so that you know what's going on around you. And they call themselves like the silent majority. They think that like they're all infiltrated. So it's really interesting to know because you know what to look for around you. And it's really about our issues. We know our issues with restrictions on personal rights, book banning among them. And this book is going to give a lot of context into the people propelling the actions and what it means for democracy. There's a foreword by Jamie Raskin. It's got 8 pages of color photographs, and it takes a lot of the contents explored in there was a documentary called Grand Nighthawk Infiltrating the KKK, and it reveals like shocking events not even covered in the show. He's going to go there. He's going to tell it all. And it's really exclusive. And I just thought baffling. But in the preface, I'm sorry if you'll indulge me to read this little bitty part because it was shocking. It's first part of the book. It says, in my years serving as an Army sniper and section leader on numerous overseas deployments that I am not permitted to disclose in hostile authoritarian countries, nothing I witnessed in them scares me as much as what we're facing at home right now. Should we be afraid? With the 2024 election looming and democracy itself on the ballot, the answer is yes. We should be very afraid. I mean, it's got a great Brad Meltzer quote. It's just a really important book that, like, if this man who's gone into the KKK twice, there was Arby Cypress scared, like, pay attention. We need to know what's going on and what's coming up on the ballot in 2024.
Another important read, Lainey. Yep.
Very jarring, but
Yeah.
necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We kind of went back and forth on some hard reads with some fun
Yeah,
reads, but
yeah. Well, I think this might be the last one. I'm not sure. Is it?
Yeah. I hit a button. I hit a button, I guess. I don't know. I didn't do
Okay.
anything, but okay, we
Can
should be
you-
good.
Can you hear us now?
It's a thumbs up.
If I could turn back time. Can you hear that?
Well,
Can they? Oh God, have they all turned off?
No, people are still here, it looks like.
we stopped saying things. Don't worry, you didn't miss anything.
Okay, somebody said yay, I'm getting some yeses
From who?
on Facebook.
Oh, okay, sounds
Yeah.
bad. Okay,
we're
so
back.
Facebook is good. People
Okay,
in Crowdcast?
we're good, we're good.
Okay.
Where was I? Okay, with a minute to spare, thank God they don't kick us off right at 3 o'clock, but I'll be quick. So I'll start from the beginning. This was a book called Pearly Everlasting by Tammy Armstrong. It's set in the Depression in New Brunswick. And it's about this family that adopts a baby cub, a bear. It's a cook in a logging camp finds this orphan bear and he brings it home to his wife, who names the cub Bruno and raises him alongside their newborn daughter, Pearly. Pearly Everlasting. Everlasting is their last name. And this is the family of four that grow up, and these bear and girl have a very special bond. They're inseparable. And they're living life in this logging camp. And they're all just accepted for this special, unique bond that they have. But a new supervisor takes over. He's a ruthless profiteer who pushes the workers to their breaking point and also abuses the bear, Bruno. And when a man is found dead in the ditch, the blame falls on the bear. And soon after, the bear is kidnapped and sold to an animal trader. So determined to rescue the only brother she's ever known, Pearly, who now is a teenager, sets off on this journey to find him. So she goes through the forest the first time to the outside to find him in this harrowing quest to bring him home through miles of ice and snow and bad people and just a lot of strange stuff going on. So it's steeped in folklore and superstition, And it's also set against the backdrop of an enchanting woodland, but it's really about good over evil and beauty in the natural world. And obviously it's not based on a true story, but it is inspired by one because there was a photographer, a Boston wildlife photographer, William Underwood, in the winter of 1903, he visited a lumber camp deep in the woods of Maine, and he photographed a woman nursing her newborn daughter alongside this orphan bear cub. So it is a work of fiction, but it was inspired by this encounter. There's great in-house praise for this book. I'm gonna read a few things, because I always feel like when people start, especially in-house, when people here start, you know, really going crazy about a book, it's like you've got, FOMO. It's like, what am I missing out on? What do I need to know about? I love our deputy publisher wrapped this up nicely and said, it's as if Scout Finch were dropped into a Ron Rash novel. Isn't that perfect? It's so perfect. They're comping it to The Snow Child, of course, Remarkably Bright Creatures. That title gets comped a lot, but I kind of feel like here it really does hit the mark. Amanda Peters, who won the Carnegie Medal this year for the Berry Pickers, said, an unforgettable tale of unconditional love and the powerful bond of siblings, a remarkable story sparkling with brilliance.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there's just a lot of love for this book. I could read you some of the quotes from in-house, but there's just so much love here, talking about our VP associate publisher says this is a truly special story. I hope you will join Pearlie and Bruno on their unforgettable journey. Let's see, let me read some more to you. It's one of our sales reps said, I absolutely love this rich and magical story about a girl and her bear. The love and connection between the characters feels so real, as does the deep, dark woods setting in New Brunswick. Senior marketing director for this book said, I know so many people I want to recommend this book to. I cannot wait for others to discover the world of Pearlie and Bruno. And really, it just goes on and on with this love for these characters and the way it's just put together and the connection that they have, and you just sort of go with it. And it's not all beautiful. I mean, there's some nasty stuff going on, some bad folks that they meet along the way. But I think it's a beautiful package too. That jacket just came out. So anyway, really excited about this one. You'll hear us talking about this one a bunch more too. So those are some fall books coming out. And then again, as we said, some June books that we hope that you'll take a look at. And if you're a Library Reads voter, May 1 for those June publications. And a wrap up of PLA. And I think we kind of got a lot in an hour. I'm glad with this.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for today, unless anybody has any questions or any final songs or poems or.
They loved the share.
Did they?
Let's do a full song. Go ahead.
Oh my God. You know what's so funny is that we're in the office and this is not soundproof at all. So I know those people sitting behind us like, shut up. I don't care. I'm gonna keep singing. Hell.
Oh.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah,
I don't have any of the comments up. What are they?
we have easily the best part of my day. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yay.
Lots of very sweet comments, and yes, sing more, great presentation. Let us know. I feel like these books were like a good mix of PLA, what we talked about PLA, and then some new ones. So like, if you weren't there, you got some. If you were there, you got some. So let us know what you want to hear next time.
Yeah, please do, because we'll be back next month. Don't forget about Writers to Watch next week. But then we'll be back in May for another round of Galley Gab Fest. Sometimes we have like the associate, I don't know, we have the publisher on to talk about Harper Voyager and that sort of stuff. But if there are certain types of books you want to hear about, or a certain time frame in which they're being pubbed, let us know, because we're gonna, we're happy to talk about anything. But of course, we always do love to get those books in that are just so close to our hearts, like the ones that are coming out in a month or two. So anyway, just let us know because we're happy to present what is helpful to you all. So
Yeah.
thank you for watching, and we hope to see you at
We put
Writers to
the
Watch.
Writers to Watch up one more time, Grace.
Yep, I will.
And we're on Crowdcast. Knock on wood, it all went good today. So Writers to Watch will be, it's a separate event, but you should be, same people register for this, should be registered for that. You'll get a notification, or as always, Facebook people, you can watch there too. But yay,
Woohoo.
exciting.
So glad to be back on Crowdcast. Thanks to Lainey and Grace for figuring that out, because that's nice, you know, you get the reminder, and because life is busy and you get it. So, you know, we hope you can join us. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, I guess that's it.
Until next time.
Until next time.
See you later.
See you later, alligator.